The Legend of Zelda Majoras Mask has always been one of Nintendo's most unique Zelda games when first released. You played as Link, who's much stronger after the events of Ocarina of Time, and tried to stop a giant moon from crashing on the land known as Termina. With a name like that, it's no wonder it's an endless loop of doom and gloom. Majora's Mask reuses character models from Ocarina that were necessary because of time constraints. This might have seemed lazy on Nintendo's part, but sadly, due to the game being made less than 2 years, they had no choice. This may result in using old models, but with the help of the expansion pack, which came bundled with either Majora's Mask or Donkey Kong 64, you had some enhanced looking graphics at the time. This also gave Nintendo a chance to give some old models development. For example, the Cuckoo Lady from Ocarina became Anju, a character who has spawned the biggest side quest in Zelda history. Unfortunately, with the less time in the pod development, Majora's Mask suffers from not having a whole lot of dungeons. Don't get me wrong, the dungeons can be a bit difficult, and take a bit to get to, but this might put off some players. You have a total of 4 dungeons in 4 locations: Woodfall, Snowhead, Great Bay, and Ikana. These locations also sport 4 races, 3 that are already known and 1 new one. You have the Deku race, the Goron race, and the Zora, and the newly created race, the Ikana. Hey there guys, my name is Pika, and today on Pika Views, we will be taking a look at The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. Let's get started. Our story takes place after the events of Ocarina of Time, where Link goes on a journey on his own to find his friend Navi, who just left him after the events of the game's story. As he travels through the forest, he encounters 2 fairies known as Tattle and Tail, who knocks him off his horse. Meanwhile, from the shadows, a skull kid with a mask of our box art reveals himself. He steals Link's ocarina and also his horse. Link gives chase, but unfortunately falls into a hole. The Skull Kid proceeds to use some mysterious power that turns our hero into a Deku Scrub, leaving Link with his new form. Tattle knocks him down and gets left behind. Finding out she can't open doors on her own, she asks for our help knowing it was her own fault. Tattle is this game's version of Navi, but a little less annoying, and is also rude if you try to tattle on enemies you've seen in past games. As you travel through the windmill, you are transferred to the land of Termina, where you meet the Happy Mask Salesman. Can't be a game called Majora's Mask without the man behind the mask shop. The fact the game made a side quest that's easily ignored into a character with some importance is pretty creative on Nintendo's part. The Happy Mask Salesman asks you to get the mask the Skull Kid had, and tells you have 3 days to retrieve it. What does he mean by that? Well, let's just say Majora's Mask is a time management type of game. You see, as you're exploring Clock Town, the clock in the middle of the HUD is always moving. The only time it stops is when you talk with NPCs, but overall, it's always constant. Now, the time management admittedly is stressful on your first playthrough, but once you understand how it works, it becomes a little easier. Unlike Ocarina of Time where Ganon takes over and doing nothing, Majora's Mask, however, gives you 3 days and 2 nights to solve the issue, or the moon crashes and destroys everyone. Majora's Mask has been deemed to be the darkest of the Zelda series. Some say Twilight Princess, but I'm biased and can safely say Majora's Mask is much darker with what goes on. Clock Town is your central hub, which is a first for a Zelda game. You will always return back to Clock Town, be it resetting the game or returning back for supplies. Clock Town is also currently having a festival celebration that will happen on the 3rd night. As you explore Clock Town and converse with some of the characters you meet up with, you find the Great Fairy, who gives you the power to shoot bubbles from your nose. This allows you to burst the balloon and start a hide-and-seek minigame with some kids known as the Bomber Gang. After winning their game, you are given a code that allows you to enter the secret hideout to the Astro Observatory, where you meet up with an old man that helps you see where the Skull Kid is hiding. After spending a few days in Clocktown and you reach the final night, the gate opens to you and you arrive at Skull Kid's doorstep. He explains that he shall use the moon to crush everyone, and then proceeds to tell you to go to 4 locations to rescue them. With Skull Kid slapping Tell out of the way and causing the moon to get closer, we use the power of our snot and reclaim our ocarina back. Lucky for us, relearning the Song of Time through memory, we turn back time and head back to the very first day. We return back to the Happy Mask Salesman, and he teaches us the Song of Healing, which will not only help us in the future, but also revert us back to normal. After telling the salesman we were unable to get his mask back, we are told we must get it back as he tells us the dark secrets about the mask. After learning about the mask, this is when Majora's Mask really starts up. The tutorial takes about 45 minutes to get through. But once you're out of Clocktown, you enter Termina Field and head to the first destination, the Southern Swamp. As I said before, Majora's Mask has a total of 4 dungeons, but these dungeons take a bit to get to. As you explore the 4 areas of the game, you have to figure out what the problem is, how to solve it, and where to go. Majora's Mask does not hold your hand, but the game does give you a general direction as to where to go. It's not always noticeable, and trust me, on my first playthrough, it's very easy to not understand what you're supposed to do. But the dungeons are not where Majora's Mask shines the most. Whenever anyone talks about Majora's Mask, they always bring up the many side quests the game offers to you. With a lack of 7 whole dungeons to complete, you're not going to have a lot of hearts. So to compensate for this, the game offers you many side quests and 24 masks to collect. The main thing you must know about Majora's Mask is trying to tackle as much as you can in one cycle. With a bomber's notebook that allows you to keep track of everybody's set schedule, you'll be able to manage when or how you're supposed to meet an NPC. Now I think it's time for me to go over one of my favorite side quests in Majora's Mask. Let's start with number 3, the Hand Toilet Ghost. Now this is not a big major side quest, but it does allow you to be a jerk if you so wish. Once you get Andrew's letter or the deed from the Deku Scrub, you will meet a hand ghost at night in the inn who really needs some toilet paper. Now you have the option to give the deed, or you can be a massive jerk and give them Andrew's letter to Cafe. Yes, you will be locked out of the side quest for that cycle, but it's still pretty funny that the game allows you to do that. Number 2, defending the ranch and Cremia's escort. Now, I love this side quest mainly because you get to meet something you never get to see in a Zelda game: aliens. Now, I do know some people call them ghosts, but I think they are more so aliens, and yes, it's because they steal cows, are only in a farm area, and come from the sky. I'm sticking to that forever, so, you know, what are you gonna do? Once you complete that part of the side quest, you are then allowed to escort Cremia to Clocktown to deliver milk. And I like this scene because you get a nice backstory of how both Cremia and her sister lived on the ranch. You also get to stop some Gorman brothers by shooting them with unlimited arrows, and hearing them go all the time. Also, if you complete this mission twice, you get a nice big hug from Cremia, and what boy does not want that? Now for number 1, the best side quest I enjoy doing every single time, but at the end of the game, and whenever I can. You love it, and everyone talks about it. The Mailman. I love helping this guy. He has a focused schedule, and if he does not have one to follow, he feels distress. But no, in all honesty, it's Andrew Cafe. The Andrew Cafe side quest is one of the only side quests in the game that spans through all 3 days to complete. If you miss only one part of the quest, you have to do it all over again, which can mainly be the only common issue with this side quest. The Andrew Cafe side quest starts off with you talking with Cafe's mom, who is looking for her son. She explains she has the mask that can help with the search for him. You take the new Cafe mask and show it to Andrew once she starts talking to the postman. She tells you to meet her at the inn around 11:30 at night. Meeting up with her during this time, you are given the mail to deliver to the mailbox. Once the postman takes said mail, he delivers it to Cafe, who lives off to the side of Clocktown's laundry area. Once Cafe picks up the mail, you are allowed to enter Cafe's hideout. He finds out Andrew mentions Link and puts his trust in Link to tell him the truth. It seems during the events of the game, Skull Kid used his power to turn Cafe to a young boy. Kafei does not wish to show his face to his mom or Anju, so he teams up with the Curiosity Man to find the whereabouts of a man named Saiken. Saiken is a man you can stop during the first night when he steals a little old lady's bomb bag, but you don't want to stop him when doing this side quest, as doing so will cause Saiken to never appear again. Once you get the promised pendant from Kafei, you give the pendant to Anju, who believes in Kafei's words and waits for him. If you don't give her the pendant, she and her family would leave Clocktown and go to Romani's ranch to stay. You can still complete the side quest, but you won't get the full reward, and Kafei would mostly just stand in an empty room with Anju not waiting for him to return. Man, I make it sound very sad when saying it like that. Anyways, once you get the pendant and you head to Ikana Valley, you wait on the third night for Saiken to open his hideout. You control both Link and Kafei for this part, Kafei solving puzzles and Link taking care of the monsters. Once Kafei gets what was stolen from him, which was the Sun Mask, he runs back to Clocktown, and the final hours are upon us. As you wait in the inn with Anju, you wait for the last few hours before Kafei enters the room. I like to think with Kafei running back to Clocktown, it took him longer since he does not have magic feather powers like we do. The two reunite and combine the Sun and Moon Mask to create the Couple's Mask. This mask symbolizes Anju and Kafei's bond and is such a perfect end to this side quest, and I normally do this side quest while heading for the final area of the game. And those are my three favorite side quests in Majora's Mask. Of course I had to add Anju and Kafei as number one. When you're not focusing on helping others, you're mostly going to be helping the four nations in Majora. The Dekus, the Gorons, the Zoras, and the new race, the Ikanas. The Deku tribe are dealing with a crisis. Not only is their water poisoned, but their princess has also been kidnapped. They accused a monkey for the kidnapping and sentenced him to be cooked. The hero learns that the princess was taken to the dungeon and is tasked to enter the dungeon to save her. We learn the Sonata of Awakening from the monkey and head to our very first dungeon. Woodfall Temple is very straightforward. You will be gathering the pink stray fairies which reward you the spin attack. The main gimmick of Woodfall is mostly figuring out how to cleanse the water. Once you obtain the bow and arrows and the boss key, you take on the first boss, Uldawa, who is not only responsible for Woodfall, but also the person who captured the Deku princess. Stopping Uldawa cures the water in Woodfall and Southern Swamp. You also save the very first giant, who also teaches you the song used very later in the game, Oath to Order. Saving the princess and monkey completes the task of Woodfall area, and you head off to the next area, Snowhead. Mountain Village is a cold area that is home of the Gorons. Once known as the Rock Eaters, there still are, but now are big huge race rollers. The Gorons are in a forever snowstorm because of the Snowhead Temple. You learned that once a renowned hero named Dermani went up to Snowhead and tried to stop the cause. He unfortunately died in battle and is now a ghost. We listened to his final wish and put him to rest with the Song of Healing and obtained the Goron Mask. With this mask, we are allowed to get more info about what's happening with the Gorons. We learned that a baby Goron, let's not ask how they reproduce, is crying for his dad. Little is known about the dad, but we do know he is frozen in ice. Talking with him allows us to learn the half notes of the Goron lullaby, and playing the song to his son allows his son to give us the full version of the song. With the Goron lullaby, we can now head to Snowhead. This temple is a vertical dungeon and has the green stray fairies which will reward you with more magic, and your goal is to reach the top. Throughout the dungeon, you will go from room to room to solve puzzles and find the switches to the pillar to get you to the top. The boss here is Goat, and he is by far the best and most fun boss fight in the Zelda series in my opinion. The goal of the boss fight is using the Goron Mask's unique ability, the Goron Roll, to chase after the mechanical bull. As the fight gets closer to the end, Goat will combine more moves by throwing rocks, stalactites, and bombs. Eventually the boss is dealt with and restores Snowhead and the Mountain Village back to normal. The next area we head to is the Great Big Coast. Some may remember this place as being the stage in Super Smash Bros. Melee for the GameCube and returned in Smash Ultimate. The Great Big Coast is having both shallow water problems and the Zoro band of the Indiegogo singer Lulu missing her eggs. The guitarist Mikau, who went on to try to save Lulu's eggs, was unfortunately cut down and abandoned in the ocean. Lucky for us, we find him and hear his final wish. We play the Song of Healing and obtain the Zoro Mask. The Zoro Mask allows Link to swim with almost perfect swimming controls. The 3DS version of the game changes this by making the default swimming be active via the Zoro Electric Shield attack. But you're also maybe wondering why I'm not fully taking a look at the 3DS version. Well, I unfortunately don't have the tools at the moment, but I can say the 3DS version does change a few things here and there. Aside for a visual upgrade, and some bosses and Stray Fairies locations have been altered a bit. The 3DS version also marks almost every single NPC in the game, unlike the original where it's limited to 30 characters. This not only makes it easier to pinpoint who has what, but it also gives a much better detail on where and when that character will be available. After attaining the Zoro Mask and learning what happened to Lulu's eggs, you head to the Gerudo Pirates Fortress. The Gerudos has stolen some of Lulu's eggs, and there is a nice detail in Lulu's room of a struggle happening. You learn that the pirates want to explore the Great Bay Temple, but sadly it's surrounded by a terrible whirlwind. Getting back all of Lulu's eggs allows you to learn the song New Wave Bossa Nova. This not only allows you to enter the temple, but gives you the ability to tell Lulu that her babies are safe. You now make it to the Great Bay Temple. This dungeon, unlike Snowhead, is more exploring the bottom half. The goal is to activate all the switches to gain access to the boss's lair. Your reward for defeating a Link to the Past enemy, Wart, are the ice arrows. You may be wondering all the treasures in the dungeons have been nothing but arrow upgrades. All the traditional Zelda items are located outside of the dungeon, such as the Lens of Truth being obtained from the cave in Mountain Village, the Hookshot being found in the Pirate Fortress, and the Mirror Shield which is found in Ikana. The items in Majora's Mask are more so used the same way as they are in Ocarina, so you won't feel too lost unless Majora's Mask is your first 3D Zelda game. Once you have activated all the switches in Great Bay, you head for the next boss, Gyorg. Now, this boss originally was very simple to beat, but the 3DS version changes the fight halfway. The platform you stand on at the start of the fight will submerge, and you are forced to use the Zoro Mask to fight Gyorg. This was a change I can say was needed, mainly because the original fight mostly had you shoot arrows or using the Zoro's Finn's boomerang to stun Gyorg and hit him with the electric shield attack. The 3DS version of the fight not only allows the Zoro Mask to be used for the fight only, but to give a bit more of a challenge to an already easy boss originally. Once you have taken out Gyorg, you save the third Guardian and head for the final area of the game, Ikana. Ikana Valley sports a more dark atmosphere than any of the other areas. The music you hear is more gloom sounding. The valley is filled with not only the dead, but also ninja-like beings called the Garos who hide in the shadows, who tells you about the lore of Ikana. The Ikana tribe, the unique Zelda race, are style-like soldiers who serve the king Ingus de Ikana. They are unable to rest because of the curse that's surrounded around the valley. You meet with the captain of Ikana, Kita, and meet one of the composer brothers, Flat, where you relearn the Song of Storm, which was used to drain the well in Ocarina, now has the ability to remove Curse, a new status effect in Zelda games. Exploring the valley, you're not given much to explore besides one area where you meet up with Flat's brother, Sharp, who was tricked into selling his soul to the devil. This caused Sharp to play a song that drains your health, but thanks to Flat's Song of Storm, you are able to heal him. Fun fact, if you try to use the Song of Healing, a song that's used for almost all of our problems, it won't work. He will say something along the lines that it's too late to be healed. Once you heal Sharp's curse, he tells you the lore about what happened to Ikana, and how to get into the castle. The music box that was surrounded by Gibdos are now all gone, and you gain access to the music house. You meet up with Palma's father, who's been turned into a Gibdo. Using the Song of Healing removes this curse and obtain the mask that will be used to gain access to the castle. You head down the well, putting to rest all the Gibdos below by fulfilling their request, and you obtain the Mirror Shield. Design is different here than it was in Ocarina. Some say it might be symbolizing the pain of the people of Ikana feels, and some say it's the sorrow of all Termina. What do I think? I just think it's a shield that's always screaming for help. With the Mirror Shield in hand, you are now able to gain access to the castle, which I can't unhear bits from Hyrule Castle from Link to the Past. Ancient City of Ikana has one of my favorite themes in the game. In fact, there are a lot of songs I enjoy in Majora's Mask. Koji Kondo did an amazing job on this soundtrack. Having many renditions of Something Wrong theme in the 4 areas, having 3 renditions of Clocktown's theme. First day is a slow pace, second day is a little bit faster, and the third day much faster with an added dread noise. But one of my favorite themes has to go to the Final Night theme. This theme is my favorite on many levels. Not only are you able to hear it almost everywhere, you hear the bell constantly, and the ground shaking every few seconds. It's an amazing feeling when you run around with this theme going off. and it really makes you feel this desperateness of Termina being on its last legs. It's just that good. Anyways, traveling through Ikana Castle, you solve a few puzzles here and there and meet up with the leader of Ikana, the king of Ikana, and his 2 soldiers. After a few lights shining, you defeat both the soldiers and the king. The king teaches you a song that will shed you of your former self. This song is called the Elegy of Emptiness, or Elegy of Emptiness, whichever how you want to pronounce it. And this allows you to travel to Stone Tower. You see, if you went to Stone Tower early, you will find switches that don't stay on unless there's pressure on them. Elegy of Emptiness allows you to use your lifeless body to hold down on the switches. Stone Tower Temple is the final temple and can be one of the longest on your first playthrough. There are 2 halves of the temple, right side up and upside down. Once you obtain the light arrows, the red gem outside allows you to turn the temple upside down, giving you a completely different layout. It's one of the only temples that does this, and it's never used ever again. Once you manage to get everything, you take on the final boss, Twin Mold, a boss that has appeared in past Zelda games, but now takes on a new design. The boss is fairly simple, and can be defeated by a few sword swings using the Giant Mask. You face the Twin Molds in a giant-like battle. Now, if you're playing the 3DS version, the boss fight is completely different. First off, you face off against one of the Twin Molds, and once defeated, you then obtain the Giant Mask. You take on the last Twin Mold, but not with your sword, more so with your fist and rocks. Yeah, they mostly changed the fight into more of a hand-to-hand combat. I guess if you like that sort of fighting style, then more power to you. Once you defeat Twin Mole, you save the last guardian and lift the curse from Ikana's Canyon, and allow the dead to rest once more. Your reward for getting all the stray fairies in Stone Tower is the Great Fairy Sword. Oh, also I should mention that for Great Bay stray fairies, you get yourself half defense, so that way you don't end up taking a full tank of damage from anything. So that's good. Now, the Great Fairy Sword is not an upgrade to your sword, but it's an item used for your C button. It's a very odd thing to do, but since the equipment system is not in Majora's Mask like it was for Ocarina, I can understand why it's an item and not an equipable weapon. Once you have saved the 4 Guardians, the time to head back to Skull Kid is upon us. You head to the final night and back up to the top of Clock Town. Play the Oath to Order and have the 4 Guardians stop the moon from crashing. Once the 2 fairies celebrate the victory, we hear a voice. Well, it's not called Majora's Mask for a reason, and we were told the mask has some strange powers from the Happy Mask salesman. Majora's Mask removes itself from Skull Kid and enters the moon, allowing it to gain full control, causing the Guardians to struggle. Tato and Link head into the moon and are greeted in a world that looks both peaceful and sports no music except for the moon rumbling. This place is a huge contrast compared to the dark Dune-like setting of Termina. On the moon, there are only 5 children, and a tree in the center. The 4 children running around bear the mask for the boss's remains, and each of them sports a task that only your transformation mask can do. I should also mention, if you do have the Mask of Truth, and also see any of the Gossip Stones, the Gossip Stones will end up giving you a hint as to where the other masks are located. It's a really nice touch and a very odd way to get a hint, but by this point, you're either probably looking up a guide to be able to find all the masks, and that's pretty much what you're going to be doing. Giving all 20 masks to these 4 children allows you to obtain the most powerful mask in the game, the Fierce Deity Mask. This mask, in terms of its design and what it can do, is amazing. Fierce Deity Link is by far my most favorite design of Link ever. The Fierce Deity Mask is supposed to represent all the people you helped throughout your journey, since, you gave all your mask away. But Majora thinks of you as the villain, and they are the good guy, mostly branding the Fierce Deity Mask as some sort of evil side of Link. But it's just the boss killer for the final boss. Majora's Mask has 3 phases, one being the mask, the second being a form that's more crazy and dances, and a more offensive third form. But if you learn from the many battles you had up to this point, Majora should be fairly easy to beat. Unfortunately, unlike the 4 main bosses, Majora retains the same battle as the 3DS version. It's odd since they changed the 4 area bosses but not Majora. Once you defeated Majora's Wrath, you save Termina and the game ends with the celebration and the credits roll. A nice detail I like about the credits is that each mask you obtain from a side quest will show up on the credit screen if you did not do the side quest, meaning you would not see the happy ending results for that character associated with the mask. It's a nice detail, but also sad since it's just a black screen while the mask spins around. Overall, Majora's Mask still fits the wonderful setting of a dark environment. With Breath of the Wild 2 on the way, I'm wondering what Nintendo plans to do with that game. We were given a trailer that had a different tone compared to the first game, with a supposed dead Ganon in an underground cave, and a bunch of creepy things happening. But Breath of the Wild 2 seems to be going for a more darker tone, but we won't know until they give us more information. Maybe this year's E3, here's hoping. Majora's Mask during its release was not a lot of people's favorites. It was different in terms of exploration, and the small numbers of dungeons was a bit off-putting. It did not help that most players might have gotten a game over in the Deku Link sequence, and the time management is not everyone's cup of tea. But Majora's Mask did introduce and give a lot of personality to a lot of the no-name characters, and also gave us new characters. Say hello to Tingle, the green-wearing fairy man of 35 who is your map seller. Tingle was a tame character until Nintendo started to make him a bit of a greedy man who would only help you with the right amount of rubies. The reused models in Majora's Mask got a massive character change. Saiken, who was just a man running through the marketplace, became an important character to both Andrew Caffey's side quests. The running man, whose only purpose was to run, became the postman in Majora, and has also introduced something that will be used in future Zelda titles like the mailing system. Majora's Mask will always be my favorite Zelda game, and even though it was a game that I picked up and did not care about, I was really happy when I returned back to it when I grew up. And I was really excited when they remade it for the 3DS. Even though some changes are good and some are meh, I really enjoy what the game has to offer. With Nintendo giving character to NPCs that did not have a whole lot to them, and a game I can always go back to with no problem, at the time I never did fully grow up with Ocarina of Time. Majora's Mask was the Zelda game I grew up with, and I can't recommend it enough to anyone who wants to try something different in the Zelda series. Oh boy, that was long. I think this was a bit longer than the last two reviews I've done. I guess with Majora's Mask being my all-time favorite, I cannot help but gush about it. That's all I got for you guys today. So thank you for watching and hope you all enjoy yourself. I will see you guys for the next peek of view, and I would appreciate any feedback to this video. Once again, thank you and take care out there. Laters.